So really same as last week, bar Dan Lydiot and Stephen Myler returned from injury, as has Sam Parry, which is good. In relation to other players back, nobody else is back. Obviously we have the opportunity to select from international players that were relieved of duty last week. So that's everybody that's in the melting pot.
Yeah, great, thank you, Toby. I think that covers everything. Just a couple of the non-internationals, people like Kieran who we haven't seen and stuff. How are they? That'd be the only thing I'd ask.
Which one?
Kieran Williams, T and Thomas Wheeler, maybe. There was one other, but let me think of it.
So we obviously lost Will Griffith to injury in the game, which is disappointing, and he's not available. He'll be a long-termer, I think. Kieran Williams played for Swansea, but he has been ill, so he's not been around this week. He's recovering, so that's where that illness has gone. And Tian's back in training and has trained for 2 weeks fully. So, yeah, they're all good.
Great. And the illness you had last week, has that cleared up?
Yeah, we've not seen it. I think there's a few staff that are still struggling a little bit, but I think we're through the back of it, touch wood. So.
Okay, Stormers are in town. Defending champions, 14 league wins, big test for you.
Yeah, massive. You've got to lose sometime, right? So, from that point of view, look, I'm on record of wanting to test our group, whether it be young players, international players, what we're trying to do against the best. And I said the influence of having the top South African teams in the competition means that everyone has to get better, and this is, if nothing else, a benchmarking exercise for progress. We had one of those last week against a full strength Ulster team, or a very strong Ulster team, and we had one previous against a very buoyant Glasgow. So every week's an opportunity to mark yourself where you are, and by what you can put out as well. So we're excited by that challenge for sure.
And if you play like you play against Glasgow, stand a good chance?
Well, you got to defend well. Against the Stormers you have to defend well, for sure. And we did that really well against Glasgow, as you say, against a team that was coming off a 50-point win versus Cardiff. So we needed to defend well, and we did that. And we took our opportunities when they presented themselves, scored 4 good tries, So from that point of view, it's a different challenge, type of challenge, but the same challenge. You're going against a team that's going to, basically be very positive, try and express itself, good athletes, big collisions. So defensively is going to be a massive test for sure. But like all good teams, your performances often starts and finishes with your fundamentals. So you need to be good at defensively, good set piece wise, good out of your half, So, and that gets you in the window, and then you decide how good you can be.
What would it do for your season, Toby? Because it's probably been 1 win from 4, inconsistent, good, and the draws and the defeats. What would it do for your season to beat a team like that at home?
Well, I think beating it anywhere. I mean, obviously away from home is even better. But yeah, at home we know. My first year in COVID, we won more away than we did at home. And then last year we were the opposite. And everyone wants to make sure that you're very, very difficult to beat at home, for sure, in front of your home fans and whatever. So I think externally it drives that reputation which every team is trying to create, but also from for us on the performance side, we've you're right in relation to we were outclassed on Saturday. You've got to put your hands up sometimes, and that's how it is. We were plucky, we had effort, we kept working hard, but we got outclassed in certain areas, and we understand that. So we've drawn a line under that and looked to put as much of the Glasgow performance, and and to be fair, the performances before that we performed well, but it doesn't mean you're always on the right side of the scoreline. So we need to make sure that we both perform well and finish on the right side of the scoreline. And obviously, I know that's an obvious thing to say, and that's our aim. But if we can do that against, the champion team, the team that's 140 in a row or whatever the number is, I think you just mentioned, that'll be a real feather in our cap, because we're turning around from a team that didn't win very much to a team that wants to be competitive, and it's another good notch in the belt, as it were.
Great. Just final one for me. Just assume Gareth Thomas, with coming off with the HIA last week, I assume 6-day turnaround. He's just going through his protocols and won't be available this weekend.
Yeah. So as you all know, it's now a minimum 10-day protocol. So yeah, he's not available.
Thank you. Good luck on the weekend.
Thank you.
Toby, what happened to Will Griff, and how long is long term?
Well, we don't know. He had the scan yesterday. He felt something in his knee go pretty early on the game, and then he got caught in a compromised position. So I think he's got two almost impacts back to back. Well, I say back to back in relation to the same game. So I think he's gonna have an operation this week. And obviously, when you have an operation, you with the scans, nothing's more relevant than what happens when you actually open up. So from that point of view, it'll be determined by what they see. But he's going to need some form of knee repair for sure. And those normally start at the 12-week bracket normally if there's operations involved. So might be shorter than that, depends on the degree of it. But you're looking at around a 3-month mark, I would have thought.
And should Wayne be worried about any of your Welsh contingent, ahead of the autumn series? You've got 3 or 4 players there now. Justin, Alex Cuthbert, you've got Gareth Anscombe, you mentioned Gareth Thomas, so that seems fine. But should Wayne be worried about any of these guys?
I'm the one that should be worried about when he takes and what I've got left. So from that point of view, it's always a difficult one. No, I think that the boys are out on the pitch, running around. The only person that isn't is Cuthbert. Like I said last week, but those boys are, they're close. As I said, it's the nature of their injuries are pain management rather than repair and strength and bits and pieces. So as soon as they are able, they'll take the field for sure.
And going back to Kieran, you say he's ill at the moment.
Kieran Williams, yeah.
Yeah. It's he's had a run of bad luck, hasn't he, with injuries and various bits and bobs. Yeah,
I mean, obviously he was one of the most impactful players that I sort of got to know in my first year here. Had a very good season, and has been dogged with stop-start since then really, which is a shame for him, because as I said previously, he was a guy who could impact a game quite significantly. So that's really disappointing for him and for us.
And you're coming up to a spell now where you'll have players away, undoubtedly, or probably with Wales in the centre. So he would have been, and he could still be, perhaps, I don't know, a useful guy to have around. Oh,
100%. You've got him, you've got Tian, you've got Joe Hawkin, people like that opportunity. You've got Mikey Collins on there as a bit of a mainstay. As you say, we're about to lose those guys in a few weeks, and in that time you have an international programme. We travel to South Africa at the end of that window, so those boys won't be with us probably for that window either. Straight back into the Champions Cup, so we're under extreme pressure, and the Christmas derbies follow that. So we've got a hell of a programme, and we're going to need, as all of our resources in order to manage our way through that for sure.
Were there any pluses at all that you picked out, from the Ulster experience last week?
Yeah, there were. Some, obviously, from an individual point of view, I thought Morgan Morris played exceptionally well. I thought he carried the ball really well, and But as a team, I thought there was Rhys Davis again. In adversity, stood up from a physical collision point of view, which is awesome. We've got high hopes for both of those guys, going forward. I think that on an individual note, on Ruben Morgan Williams as well at 9, there were some good individual elements from him. I think as a team, the thing that pleased us most was, despite being outgunned, we stuck to the principles that we talked about, which was great. So they had a discipline there, even though we weren't very accurate and created some of our own pressure. But our intent was good. And I think intent both in relation to play, but also our intent from an effort point of view. And as I said, even though we're on the wrong end of a significant scoreline, the behaviours that we're displaying is what we need to treasure, because when we aren't behind the 8 ball, those are the things that they're going to impose themselves on opposition, and we need to keep nurturing and creating that.
Toby, do you agree with Dai Young's suggestion, that the Welsh sides at the moment are 20 points behind a lot of other teams in the league?
I don't know about 20 points. I think there's where I would, and if you just go on the facts that Dai talked about the ability to recruit international players in season, there's definitely a disparity in resources for sure. That is for sure. And I think, you want your best players, including your best youngsters, to be supported around, good quality players. And the more playing resources, depth of resources that you have, the greater chance is to, let's take a young player. We pride ourselves on producing young players and developing young players here. Have done since we've got here, and Mark, you've talked to me about it a lot, right? So in order for that to happen, you can't just keep putting them in the firing line every week. You have to take them out, rebuild them both physically, mentally, give them a little bit of a breather, take their game to pieces, put it back together, put them back out there again. So that's a process that you have to go through. If there's a necessity to put that player out every single week, you don't learn, you just exist. And that's where depth of squads and numbers and competitiveness in squads allows you to do that. It also, for the boys that are more senior, means that they're under pressure for their place because the youngsters are putting their hands up. So it becomes a propelling virtuous circle, if you like. But the one thing you need for it to work is enough competition for places, enough hands on deck, and teams in our league already have significant bigger budgets than what we do, but they also they also have the ability to supplement their squads going forward. So that's the difficult part for us.
Do you feel that Morgan Morris is close to a Wales call-up, or do you still feel he's got development in his game?
He's got lots of development, like any player. I think that Morgan Morris has played exceptionally well, especially last week in adversity. And when you don't get your own things on your terms, those are the people that you want to see, because you're not always going to have your own way, especially at the next level up, at test match level. I can't decide whether he's knocking on the door or fighting for it, but all I can say is against a very big team, he's knocked a lot of people off their feet and had a big impact in the game. In what was a loss where things were stacked against him. So no, we're really pleased with where he's going. He's got a lot of upside to his game still, and we're working with him on that. But he's keen to learn and keen to put his hand up, and will continue to do so. He's part of that group that we're excited about going forward. Yeah,
last question really, and I understand the budgetary restraints, but do any of the Worcester's Wales internationals, like Sir Ashley Beck?
I knew you were going to ask me that. I knew you just.
Well, Ashley is from the Ospreys region, and as is Owen, of course. Do any of these guys interest the Ospreys?
Of course, if we could, we would. From that point of view. I know Ashley's actually injured at the moment. I understand he had something lined up in the Premiership in England that didn't come to fruition, as far as I understand. But I won't. I hope that all those Worcester players get reinstated somewhere, because it's through no fault of their own that they find themselves in those situations. Them, the staff, and you want people not to be worried about their livelihoods. And so, look, we'd love to have an open checkbook and invite loads of people back. We've got what we've got, and hopefully those boys can get sorted.